Swing pass out to the backfield of the screen, caught by Dylan Edwards. He's got men in front of him, running at the 30 to the near sideline, to 35, 40, up the sideline. Here he goes! 35, on his way to the end zone! Touchdown! Oh, the young man out of Derby, Kansas. He is lightning. He is quick. He is streaking.
I mean, welcome to college football, Dylan Edwards, man. 3 receiving touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and look at those numbers, 135 yards on the ground. That was just week 1. We want to hit on some more freshmen to watch for week 2 with a guy who helped scout and rank these college football rookies. It's Cooper Petagna. Cooper, before we get into some of these names, we saw freshmen around the country have that first game experience under their belt. Our director of research, Ryan McGrady, told us that 46 of those freshmen started and 482 total have played. So now that those jitters are kind of behind them, they got that 1 game under their belt. How much can you see a freshman grow week 1 to week 2?
Well, I think you said it. I think it's more about like getting back down to earth, right? Like you get to equilibrium a little bit. It's just football. And we saw Dylan Edwards. I mean, you read the stat line, 135 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. These guys can make an impact. I think it's less about the improvement they're going to make from week 1 to week 2, but I do think you're going to see these guys be in a more comfortable environment. The game is going to slow down a little bit, and it's going to be getting back to the basics, right? It's not going to be too big for them. There's a lot of guys. I know one guy we're going to talk about, Francis Mauigoa, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a big stage for him. Miami of Ohio week 1. Now he's got A&M week 2. So good to get that first game under his belt.
Yeah, definitely different competition for some of these schools week 1 to week 2, but I didn't see any jitters for Ole Miss linebacker Suntarine Perkins in week 1. He led the Rebels in tackles, added a sack to that stat line as well. Ole Miss now heads to Tulane. Definitely a tough test there. Why is he a freshman to watch in this one?
He's pretty dynamic. You know, he only had 21 snaps on the defensive side of the football, a lot of those coming in the second half. But this is a guy that we thought could have a Harold Perkins type impact as a freshman. And you see there in limited snaps, he did that against Mercer. Obviously, Ole Miss put up over 70 points in that game. But this is a big opponent for Ole Miss, right? You're going on the road to Tulane, top 25 team. They won the Cotton Bowl last year. They had over 400 yards total offense against a really good South Alabama team. So I think Suntarine Perkins, it's going to be more situational how they decide to utilize him. But this is going to be a guy, I think the more you see the season unfold, he's going to get on the field more comfortable and start making impact plays.
All right, I know you're really excited to talk about this next one. Huge game between Texas A&M and Miami on Saturday. And Mario Cristobal tabbing Francis Mauigoa as the starting right tackle as a true freshman. We know the Aggies, they have just a little bit of talent on the defensive line. What are you hoping to see from him in this tough test?
Well, to keep Tyler Van Dyke clean. I think that's really going to be so important in this football game. And Tyler Van Dyke, not really known for his athleticism, but a guy that is a pocket passer. And I think Francis Mauigoa had a little bit of everything, had some ups and downs in game 1 against Miami of Ohio. But the more he sees, more experience he's going to get. There's not a lot of guys like him that can step into his role day 1 as a freshman at Miami, be able to start and be relied upon. He's going to have his hands full this weekend. Shamar Stewart, one of those guys as well. That's a loaded defensive line room at Texas A&M. So it's going to be a little bit of baptism by fire, but it's a great situation for him to learn.
All right. Speaking of someone on the defensive side of the ball, freshman led his team in tackles in week 1. That was Caleb Downs, the Alabama safety. He was a freshman to watch for you last week. If I could reach you, I'd give you a little pat on the back. You were correct about that. So tell us, what's the impact for him this week?
Well, he can do a little bit of everything, right? That's what we talked about. We talked about his versatility. He had 66 snaps overall. I think he played like 24 at free safety, 8 in the slot. He played in the box a little bit. So I think that matchup against Texas is going to be key. You know, Quinn Ewers got off to a really fast start in Austin last year against this Alabama secondary. You're going to see guys like Xavier Worthy, Jatavion Sanders. Those are going to be the guys that Caleb Downs is going to find himself matched up with. And as much as we love Caleb Downs, Steve Sarkisian is going to test a true freshman on a big stage. So he's going to have a lot of action his way. We're going to see how he's going to respond pretty early.
That is a tough test going up in week 2. This is what I meant when I said that there might be a bigger challenge for some of those week 2 opponents. Earlier this week, on my favorite podcast, the Football Recruiting Podcast, you and Andrew Ivins named Dylan Edwards as your freshman of the week for week 1. We showed you that highlight reel. I'm shocked that this is your pick. I mean, over 150 yards, 4 touchdowns, such an impressive performance for him in his debut. But how does he build on that against Nebraska.
I don't know how you can, right? I mean, it was a layup. You talked about the performance and the stats, and they were gaudy. I mean, I think the biggest challenge that offensive coordinator Sean Lewis is going to have, how do you continue to find ways to put Dylan Edwards in space, right? The good thing for Colorado in that offense, they had over 4 receivers with over 100 yards receiving. So he's not the only guy, right? Nebraska is going to have their hands full with that receiving core. Shedeur Sanders is going to be the guy. Looked really poised week 1. So it's about how do we put Dylan Edwards in the best situation to kind of maximize his touches. He's another guy, he's super dynamic in the return game as well. So just find a way, get him 7, 8 touches, whatever it is. After last week, I'd find a way to increase his touches to double digits.
Yeah, even more. Maybe take a little bit of the pressure off of Travis Hunter playing almost all of the snaps on both sides of the ball. Give the rock to Dylan Edwards and good things will happen. I mentioned my favorite podcast. Where can people listen? Yeah,
24/7 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast. You can find that wherever you find your podcasts every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Look at those handsome guys right there.